We will now call the meeting of the Waco City Council on March 18th, 2025 to order at 3:03 p.m. Welcome to the work session of the Waco City Council. Welcome to all the people here in the Bosque Theater Gallery today in beautiful downtown Waco. Welcome to all the viewers at home watching on the Waco City Cable Channel. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Mayor Holmes. I'm joined on the dais here today by a full council. We've got Andrea Bearfield from District 1. We have Alicia Rodriguez from District 2. Josh Borderud from District 3, George Chase, District 5, and Mayor Pro Tem Darius Ewing sitting next to me here from District 4. We're going to start the meeting today with a moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. The first item on the agenda today is the recognition of work session speakers. I think we do have one card today. If anyone's present, they'd like to speak on, if anyone is present who would like to speak on a work session agenda item, please let us know. We have one card from Terry Brinkerhoff. I'll call you up here in a second. At this point, we provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you're here to speak and have not filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary's staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium to provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you are unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. When called to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Each speaker must limit comments to 3 minutes. If you are speaking on behalf of a group of 10 or more individuals present, please have those persons stand at the beginning of your comments, and you will be given 10 minutes to address the council. Please note that if you stand in support of a person getting 10 minutes to speak, you are forfeiting your right to speak on that item. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. While public discourse is very important to the council, we have to maintain order in the meeting so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from the council meeting any person who, while addressing the city council or while attending the city council meeting, makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, becomes boisterous, or makes unauthorized remarks from the audience, claps their hands, stomps their feet, whistles, yells, or makes similar demonstrations. So we do have a card here. The first card is from Terry Brinkerhoff. So when you get to Mr. Brinkerhoff, there you are. When you get to the podium, just state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Terry Brinkerhoff, 1128 Deer Run Road. Technically, that's Valley Mills Post Office, but I'm in McLennan County. I was here last meeting, February 18th. A comment was made that we would have an update on the Sol Ross Senior Center. I don't see it on the agenda for today. We're very concerned. There's typically 150 to 190 of us that attend the meeting, the dance club on Thursday nights. There are actually over 300 members, all of us from the surrounding area. I understand that you're looking at a couple locations, one behind the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame possibly, the other being the Lions Club Den. The Lions Club I'm familiar with for several years. That would make an excellent location for us as a temporary arrangement. Maybe there's some concerns over the availability on every single Thursday night, but we can certainly make arrangements to change if we need to. Please don't write us off. There are many of us that are concerned, and we would appreciate some sort of update. It's on everybody's mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brinkerhoff. I know that we're all looking forward to continuing that boot scooting somewhere too, and we're still studying that. Are there any other speakers at this point? I do have a card from Vernon Davis, but Vernon, are you here? I don't see you. Okay. If there's no one else present who'd like to speak on the work session agenda item, seeing no other requests to speak, we now recess the regular session and convene into work session with a report from City Manager Bradley Ford.
Thanks, Mayor. Welcome to all those in attendance and watching online. I want to start the meeting off with a couple of employee recognitions. First and foremost, I'm joined at the side dais over here by a new team member. It's our first meeting today for our new city attorney. Welcome, Kristen Hamilton Karam, and just wanted to highlight her first meeting. You can tell that the staff is excited about Kristen being here because most of them dressed up in a supportive outfit. They're all vesties. So all the attorneys in the audience appear to be wearing vests today, almost all of them. So I know they're excited, and I'm excited as city manager to have a new team member up here and look forward to many more meetings to come.
You have no idea what you've done, do you? Oh, Josh just found a new friend.
Josh is also a vestie. He loves his
yeah.
vests. Our other recognition I wanted to do tonight is for Chief Victorian. And I know she was unable to be here today, but I still think it's important, timely update. She was recently recognized as Woman of the Year, as well as with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Call Me Able Foundation for her role as Chief of Police here in Waco. And the national level award, and it really highlighted her efforts around the 30 for 30 work that she does, as well as work to educate children in policing. And one of the things they highlighted is, only about 3% of police chiefs in the country are female. And so there's just some kind of natural tendencies around policing to have males in those leadership positions. And so I just wanted to say a big thanks, hearty thanks to Chief for the work she does, the impact she's having on our organization, but also nationally around the recruitment of women into law enforcement. It's well-deserved recognition, and wanted to say thanks, Chief. I guess we can clap even though she's not here. And comms team, if you don't mind clipping that and send it to Chief, we're real proud of her. Also wanted to highlight, assuming your action on Resolution 177 tonight, we'll be swearing in Robbie Bergeson as our acting fire chief next Monday. Excited about that, excited for Robbie's work as acting chief, and appreciate your commitment to this community, Robbie. We've got one informal report on the agenda today. It's IR 162. It provides the council with an update on the Riverway development, the housing development in District 5. This was a follow-up from a council request, and it highlights some of the recent progress being made by the developer on this important economic development project. We've got 4 public hearings on the agenda. Clint Peters will cover those, our Director of Development Services, later in the work session. And then we have 43 resolutions on the agenda, and I just want to highlight a couple of them. First, Resolution 185, which approves an agreement with Yours Truly Custom Homes to provide up to $400,000 in TERS number 4 funding to assist with public improvements associated with their new development project on Gurley Lane. The planned 4-acre subdivision represents almost a $5 million investment by Yours Truly Custom Homes, and will add 21 new homes in South Waco, with 11 of those designated for low to moderate income families, which is exciting. Those 11 units will be sold at a maximum price of $160,000. And so there'll be 11 individuals or families that have access to low-priced but high-quality homes in Waco, thanks to the TIF funding and thanks to the work of Yours Truly Custom Homes. As a note, that will fully exhaust the TERS funding for affordable housing in TIF 4, or TERS 4, but we do still have $2.5 million allocated to affordable housing in TERS number 1. So any developers listening in, we still have opportunities for affordable housing in TERS 1. Second resolution I wanted to highlight, it's actually two. It's Resolutions 208 and 210. They're associated. They cover right-of-way acquisitions related to the Spiegelville roadway project. These items indicate staff in their continued advancement of design and engineering work, right-of-way work, in the hopes to bring a comprehensive project together with drainage improvements, street improvements, and bridge work in the coming years. And the last highlight I have for you is Resolution 209. It uses past bond funds, and I really want to acknowledge the work of the staff to do this. They went and looked at every couch cushion and accumulated quite a bit of resources to bring forth this item to do a mill and overlay on Aviation Parkway of $2.1 million. The contract on your agenda tonight would award that work to Texas Materials Group. As the council is well aware, this is out in District 1 in an area of town that people somewhat forget about sometimes. But it serves quite a few businesses in Aviation Business Park, including folks like Sherman-Williams, as well as new investments that have been made by multiple institutions, Aston Johnson, as well as Hesselbein Tire and a couple others. So we'll have a nice, clean roadway for them about a year from now after we spend a couple $1 million on that mill and overlay project. So appreciate the work of staff to get that advanced. We've got 4 ordinances on your agenda today. 3 of them are on second reading, and Ordinance 218 is a first reading to create a temporary construction zone within the limits of the upcoming work by TxDOT on the 4C Interstate project. With that concludes my report, and I'll take any questions you might have of me.
Any questions for City Manager Ford? Comments? I'll just right quick talk about the informal report, and really kind of blends in with the resolution on the Yours Truly Custom Homes, just about housing in the city and how we have so many other things going on with infrastructure and roads and water lines and economic development, and we are very intentional about housing in this city management team and this council. And the informal report on Riverway, which is almost 1,900 housing units, relatively close to downtown Waco. But on top of that, you're talking about the work we're doing with NeighborWorks and Grassroots and Habitat for Humanity, and what we saw just a couple weeks ago on the creek side for the unhoused, the contributions the city's making there. In addition to the Floyd Casey, 280 units there, and pocket neighborhoods on Sanger and MLK. We're very intentional about making sure or getting in the right direction on housing in this city. So I'm happy to see the Yours Truly Custom Homes, that's 21 units there, as well as seeing this Riverway development moving along. The other thing I want to talk about is 204, the fire trucks. I mean, I love buying fire trucks. So we got 2 more fire trucks here, an aerial ladder truck and a pumper engine, the continuing effort to make sure that we prioritize public safety in this city, and the great results we're seeing. We have, again, 2 fire trucks here. We are having the grand ribbon cutting on the engine out in your district, Josh, Thursday, right? And I'm happy to see Interim Chief Bergerson. That's on the resolution list here too, as you pointed out. So great things happening in the fire department. That's all I had.
Yeah, Mayor, great highlight on the fire trucks. I think that will make the 16th and 17th fire truck that we've bought or leased since I've been your city manager. Is that not crazy?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I
We,
think each council member should get like a model of that fire truck.
okay, okay. See what we can do.
Okay, not the actual one. That'll be
Scale.
3 is a scale.
Scale down to the size of like a
3.6 million
sedan.
on that.
But also, on a related note, is a special certification needed to drive one?
Yes, very much so, very much so. Well, I think the limit will be like you could honk the horn kind of thing. Okay?
You don't need to be honk certified on that.
Yeah, I think you can, I bet we can get by with that. But,
He's asking for a friend.
yeah,
Maybe you can sit in the driver's seat and we'll push it.
there you go. He could be in the driver's seat for the push-in, okay.
All right, so thank you for that. Any other questions or comments for Bradley on the work session items?
No, but, this past week I was at the National League of Cities, and I didn't get to meet with Pete Sessions because he was somewhere. So we met with Lance Gooden from Dallas, and there was the city manager of Terrell there, Bradley, and they were asking Lance Gooden for a grant for 15 more firefighters in their city. So I asked him, how many firefighters do you have in your city? He said, Alice, we're not as big as Waco, okay? I was just wondering why they were asking for a grant for 15 firefighters from their congressman. And I said, you don't ask for a grant from somewhere else? He said, Alice, this is why we're here. So I didn't make a good friend with the city manager of Terrell.
Thanks.
But just so that you'll know, if he calls you up and says, you have a mouthy city council member, because I did have my Waco City Council jacket on.
Spreading the goodwill of Waco. That's great.
I was.
Okay, the next item is the consent agenda, which includes resolutions 2025-175 through resolution 2025-217. Are there any items the council would like to remove from the consent agenda? We do have one affidavit of substantial interest, that's 185, Josh. And so the consent agenda will include resolution 2025-175 through 217, except for resolution 2025-185. The next agenda item is work session items 2025-161 through 2025-167. City Manager Ford, will you please introduce the first work session?
Certainly, Council. It's work session 163, discussion of the City of Waco Animal Shelters operations, an overview of current program, initiatives, events, challenges. There's a few of those challenges, and also a few success stories. So I'm going to invite Melissa Sheldon, our Director of Animal Services, up to the table, and she's going to update you on all the operations at Pet Circle. It's been an eventful year at that facility. Council, remember, in the fall, we took the step to bring Pet Circle fully in-house. And our team has been doing amazing work, and led, of course, by Melissa. I'm looking forward to her talking to you about the 7 months of work. As of this week, we've officially adopted more than 1,000 animals out of that facility, as well as transferring a couple hundred more to rescues and returning a couple hundred to owners in the community. We continue to build out our programming, our communications, and I'm really proud of the work that's gone on to date. And before she gets started, you know, I want to brag on the Animal Services team. We've recently been contacted by Pierce City Shelters, multiple of them, looking to model the work that goes on here in Waco over the past decade. And so folks are noticing out in around the state of Texas, peers that we have around the state are noticing the work and want to learn more about how we're accomplishing great things. And Melissa, I look forward to your presentation today.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having me today. As you mentioned, my name is Melissa Sheldon. I'm the Director of Animal Services at Pet Circle Regional Animal Center. Today we're going to be talking about, we're going to take a look at operations over the last year, as well as since the transition to Pet Circle. We'll talk about stats, numbers, program updates, events, challenges, and opportunities before ending with something positive. PAW, cited.
Nice.
So on this slide, you can see kind of on the left chart, this shows our intake. So our intake has decreased slightly, but is still pretty similar to 2023. We have seen an increase in the number of strays, so that kind of middle blue, while owner surrenders have decreased, kind of that bottom dark blue. Length of stay has increased. Length of stay is the average number of days an animal stays in the shelter system. This is the total average that you're seeing on the right for all fosters and animals in the shelter combined. If you separate out the numbers, length of stay in shelter is 22 days for dogs and 10 days for cats. In foster, It's 91 days for dogs and 73 days for cats. Recently, Adopt a Pet, which is a national organization, conducted a national median study for length of stay in shelters, which came out to be 22 days. So we're pretty on par with what other shelters across the nation are seeing. The ideal benchmark is 15 days, but national trends are rising. The increased length of stay contributes to a higher shelter capacity. So what does our capacity look like? On this chart, there are 365 data points in this graph. The orange line shows the transition to Pet Circle, or the date we transitioned to Pet Circle. 189 is our capacity for care number for dogs. This number reflects the long-term and short-term kennels, as well as puppy kennels. On our website dashboard, if you go check that out, the number does look a little different. We've further defined this number to reflect long-term kennels, as the other kennels are not meant to house dogs long-term. Puppy kennels are also included in that 189 number, so we separated out puppies on our dashboard because at times when we had little to no puppies on our site, it falsely lowered our capacity percentage, not showing the urgency of our situation, and we wanted to remain as transparent as possible where we are on space. The chart above shows our entire on-site campus population. The top bar shows our capacity for care number, which also includes cats. When we have significantly lower capacity in cats, it does look like our capacity is below 100%, but for 275 days out of 365 days, we were over capacity in our dog population. The second lower teal bar shows the ideal kennel occupancy for both dogs and cats. Because unexpected emergencies can happen, whether it's a large hoarding case or something else, it's ideal to aim for that 80% capacity for positive animal welfare. When the shelter's at max capacity, where do the animals go? So many go to foster. Fosters are an integral part of the animal shelter. They increase the capacity without having to build more capacity and enable us to save more animals. However, explosion of the foster program compounded with a full shelter can put a strain on resources. Foster animals are still owned by the city, and all their medical care is provided through the shelter. At most, the shelter cared for 847 animals at one time. Pet Circle staff have worked hard to refine the foster program and reconnect with hundreds of animals and their people that have been in foster care long term and work towards positive outcomes. You can kind of see that on this chart. In 2024, a new metric was introduced, the Shelter Animals Count, or SAC, Population Balance Calculator. The SAC Population Balance Calculation is the formula we use to determine if the shelter's population is increasing, decreasing, or staying the same. This graph shows outcomes as a percentage of intakes. So 100% means that animals are leaving at the exact same rate that they're coming in. So the total number of animals is unchanged, or we're in equilibrium. If it's under 100%, that means the population is increasing. So for example, 95% means 5% of the animals entering the shelter stayed in the shelter. And over 100% means the population is decreasing. So 106% means 6% more animals left than entered the shelter. Since September 7th, Pet Circle has accomplished more outcomes than animals intaken. And I will say, I don't have 2025 data on here, but we have maintained that through this past month. Despite being very full, there is a great story to be told at the shelter. In 2013, the City of Waco re-entered shelter operations and brought additional resources and finances to the shelter. Along with community support, the shelter first achieved no-kill status in 2016 and has maintained that status ever since. We are where we are today because of the support of the community. This is a huge accomplishment for animal lovers everywhere, but that support is still needed to maintain the no-kill status. So I'll kind of next go on to kind of program updates. I do want to say this isn't a comprehensive list, but a highlight of many of our programs. Since September 7th, we launched our own social media and website. Previously, media was operated by the Humane Society of Central Texas. Twitter, or X, Instagram, and Facebook are our primary sources. We also launched our website, petcirclewaco.org on September 7th. Our most visited pages are the homepage, adopt page, and lost and found pets. We also launched our newsletters. We have weekly, monthly, and an urgent newsletter that goes out. Newsletters currently reach approximately 500 people, but more people sign up every day. If you haven't signed up yet, definitely a great way to keep track of what we're doing. Another area we launched after September 7th is our volunteer program. Volunteers can sign up through the Better Impact software or My Impact portal. There is a background check through Sterling Volunteers that's incorporated in there, and once completed, volunteers can sign up for an orientation shift and then begin volunteering. We have tons of opportunities on there. If you want to help and don't see something, let us know. We're always seeking help and ways to help the animals. Our volunteer program is currently the greatest need of the center. Volunteers are the backbone of what we do. I do want to say, I did look at our updated numbers today, and we've had 2,333 hours today. Pet Circle also runs a pet food pantry. This program is mostly run on donations. Food insecurity can break families apart, and we want to help keep families together. We offer dog food, cat food, litter, and other supplies if we have it at no cost. We're always in need of unopened dog or cat food, as there's a significant need for this program in the community, and we want to continue to help. Another few programs we revamped or revitalized are animal adventure programs. Bark Break is a fun program that allows people to check out a dog for the day and go on an adventure. We just ask that participants let us know how the day went and take lots of photos. Another program we offer is our Sleepover Rover program. This program provides a trial run for a night or two to see how an animal does, will fit into your family or lifestyle. Animals at the shelter spend a lot of their time in their kennels, and so programs like this give shelter animals a mental break from the shelter and also tells staff how animals do outside of the shelter so we can find their perfect fit and increase their adoptability. Another program highlight is the hard work of our rescue foster coordinators. Texas is the #1 leading state in euthanizing animals for space. To combat that, Pet Circle staff works really hard to partner with shelters and rescues across the country who are not currently having a capacity crisis. Current cost to send an animal out of state is $150 per animal. However, there are more costs behind the scenes to get an animal ready for transport, like health certificates, specialized vaccines required by some states, fecals, heartworm tests, medications, et cetera, which we all do in-house beforehand. Since September 7th, 262 animals have gone to rescue in total. That's 184 in-state and 78 out-of-state. Another new face at Pet Circle is Chance. Staff members at Pet Circle pick the name via a vote. Chance represents the second chance the shelter provides to animals in need. He helps bring brand awareness, increase community engagement, and overall boost morale. It is super cute. Pet Circle also launched merch. Not everyone can always adopt or foster, but you can still rep the shelter and help spread awareness to promote the amazing animals in our care. Merch sales also help keep vital programs running to help cover enrichment and welfare costs for animals. So some of these events have since passed, but staff is hard at work scheduling events. A few of these events have passed, but I want to highlight kind of a couple of the upcoming events. More are on our website too, if you ever want to take a look and see what we have going on. One event that was super fun that I want to talk about is the playgroup adoption events. It was pretty fun. We had a large group of dogs kind of out in a playgroup with members from the community coming watching dogs play. Kind of all day, and so it was a great event, and we had a lot of adoptions that weekend, so it was very successful. Speaking of events, I do want to thank council and the community for coming out for our street name unveiling. It was a great turnout, and we were happy to show off the hard work that staff does every single day. Next, I want to talk about a few challenges we face and some opportunities. We are very, very full most of the time. With spring around the corner, actually knocking at the door, this is of great concern. Animals are staying longer than ever before, mirrored by national trends. We have seen lower adoptions in 2024 than in 2023. We are seeing increased calls for animal protection officers and strays, as well as seeing an increase in demand for surrender appointments. However, we do have a large opportunity for community engagement. So how can you help? Pet Circle is very reliant on the support of the community. Strong involvement creates and strengthens long-term success. We would not have reached no-kill status in 2016 without the support of the community, and we need that continued support to maintain that. So what does that look like? Adopting or fostering an animal at the shelter. If you can't do that, spread the word. Share our social media, tell others about the programs we have, or your good experiences. Making sure that your own pets, your family pets, are spayed, neutered, and microchipped. Non-spayed, neutered animals are more likely to roam. Microchip your pets. Microchipping also helps reunite your animal faster. It can be easy to think, oh, well, they never get out. But when it happens, you want to make sure that they can be reunited quickly and safely. Volunteering, we're always in need of help. We have a ton of great animals, and they definitely need you to help find them homes. Last but not least, donating. Whether it's your time, expertise, resources, or a monetary donation, it helps us help more animals. And of course, I did want to share a positive story. So this is the story of Squishy and Stitch. Squishy was found wandering on a busy street in District 1 with his stuffed animal. A concerned citizen called animal protection officers who attempted to locate his owner, but were unsuccessful. Squishy was then brought to Pet Circle for safety and possible reunification. Now, Squishy was very deeply attached to his stuffed animal, which staff lovingly named Stitch. When Stitch once was washed and temporarily separated, Squishy became visibly distressed, and staff worked quickly to reunite them. Veterinary staff even sutured a hole that formed on the back of Stitch to ensure Squishy could keep his beloved companion. 6 days after his arrival to the shelter, a Baylor student saw him and fostered Squishy and Stitch, offering him a temporary home. Unbeknownst to the shelter, Squishy's finder, his original finder, had posted a story on TikTok, and it quickly went viral. Calls poured in from all over the world, with people eager to foster or adopt him. However, Squishy's foster had already fallen in love, and on January 6th, Squishy officially became a foster fail, or foster win, finding his forever home. I do really love this story because it shows the power of a community coming together for a positive outcome. In summary, staff works very hard and cares very deeply about the animals in our care. We've had a lot thrown at us, and we've been under intense scrutiny. However, I'm incredibly proud of the work staff does every day. More than ever, we need the rallying support of the community to continue helping animals find their forever and keep animals in their homes. Thanks. And I do want to mention 2 of the animals on this slide were my foster animals.
All right, shout out. Thank you, Melissa. Any questions or comments?
Melissa, what's the current capacity?
Very full. I think we have every kennel full, if not more animals than we have kennels.
Gotcha.
Mayor, I'll just say, I know that several of us up here on the dais have had shelter pets, whether from the Waco, whether from Pet Circle or from out of our region, and so we're grateful for the work that our good staff is doing. This is not easy work, but it's important work, and we appreciate how conscientious our staff is, how hardworking, given the challenges that they face. So thank you for all your good work and your team. We appreciate it.
And Josh, maybe you could help more animals go viral for them. Create some online fervor.
Well stated, Josh. And any other comments? Melissa, thank you for this presentation. I know that Ashley Nystrom has done great work in getting this sort of the transition team and just getting all the data gathering. I'm so impressed by the data gathering and all the data that we see now. So great work on the team getting this all put together. And I'm encouraged to see that live exit rate is still very high. I guess I was anticipating this far in, we might see some edges and challenges there. Because I know that length of stay is increasing, and a lot of other cities are not dealing with it as well as we are. I know that in other cities are having to raise their euthanization rate. But great work on keeping it in good shape there. And I love the creative adoption strategies that you've got and the creative community engagement, Bark Break, Sleepover, Rover, Cat Cafe, Chance, all these events you're putting together. Activation is very important, and you guys are very on top of it, and I appreciate your work, Melissa. I just want to, on the shout out, encourage responsible pet ownership. If you got a pet, please take care of your pet, and that would solve all of our problems in the city. So I appreciate the people that do come by the shelter and adopt, but it starts with pet ownership and make sure everybody's taking care of their pup and cat.
And I'll just echo the need to microchip as well. I think probably found and taken a dozen or 15 dogs to fire stations to be checked, and I think 2 of them were microchipped. And it was great for those 2. It was fun to be able to call the owner and meet them there and give them the dog back. But to your point earlier, it's really crucial to keep them from having to go then to the shelter. So,
Thanks. That is it for that item. Bradley, our next item is the work session 164. We're going to talk about the Bledsoe Miller Steam Center.
That's correct, Mayor. We've got a discussion of the Bledsoe Miller Steam Center programming and partnership development strategy, as well as a bonus appearance by Mr. Jonathan Cook on a playground, I think. Roberto Zapata, our Library and Cultural Services Director, will be presenting most of this update today, and particularly centering around our programming and partnership strategy. We've been working with Transformation Waco on this strategy to activate the center. I'm glad to see Robin McDermott here from Transformation Waco, and we'll have to introduce this other team member who I'm sorry, I don't know your name. So Robin will have to take care of you. But I'm excited to hear the update. And as a reminder, we conducted a groundbreaking just recently, a few weeks ago, at the center and in January, and certainly are looking forward to opening the facility later in 2025. And I just think it's going to be an incredible asset for our community. So Roberto, take it away.
All right. Thank you, City Manager Ford. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As Bradley said, I am Roberto Zapata, and I serve as the Director of Library Services. I am joined today by my colleague, Jonathan Cook, Director of Parks and Recreation, along with Dr. Robin McDermott, CEO of Transformation Waco, and Joshua Wusher, Chief Communications and Development Officer for Transformation Waco. So today we will be providing some updates on the STEAM Center. And so the purpose of why we are here, so we will be providing some updates around that initiative. We will be recapping Phase 1 achievements of the Transformation Waco work, which includes partnerships and the programming framework. We will outline next steps and present the roadmap for Phase 2 and Phase 3. And then we will, of course, seek council support to proceed with these phases. So in December of 2024, the City of Waco entered into a consultant agreement with Transformation Waco to develop a programming and partnership strategy for the STEAM Center. With over 6 years of experience in developing pre-K to 8 curriculum, managing after-school programs, and engaging with more than 100 community partners, TW has the expertise to create innovative, high-impact programming for the center. On the agenda for your consideration tonight is the extension of this agreement, which will allow Transformation Waco to finalize a comprehensive programming and partnership plan to ensure the long-term success of the STEAM Center. So the programming vision for the STEAM Center was developed in collaboration with the City of Waco and is built around 4 key strategies. The first one is strong partnerships. So we recognize that partnerships are essential to the success of community initiatives. Working with Transformation Waco, we are connecting educators, local businesses, and nonprofits to share their expertise and resources, ensuring a meaningful and lasting impact. Tailored programs, so our programs are designed to align with state education standards and local workforce needs. We also have hands-on learning, so experiential learning is at the core of the approach. Through project-based activities, we will equip learners with practical skills, fostering innovation and encouraging critical thinking. Lastly, promoting access. We are working to remove barriers to participation, ensuring that all families, including those from underserved communities, can take advantage of the opportunities at the STEAM Center. So to bring this vision to life, we are implementing a three-phase approach that guides our efforts in developing strong partnerships, impactful programming, and sustainable operations. So phase one, partnership strategy, which was completed in March of 2025, a key component of this approach was establishing a robust partnership strategy. This strategy focuses on building a strong network of local and regional partners, ensuring that programs align with workforce pathways and educational standards, and exploring funding models, in-kind contributions, and volunteer opportunities to make programming sustainable and accessible for everyone. In terms of the partnership strategy overview, during phase one, Transformation Waco focused on several key areas to lay a strong foundation for future programming. The first one, curriculum and programming design. They engaged partners to shape hands-on STEAM experiences that align with workforce needs, industry demands, and TEKS education standards. Industry and workforce readiness, so they collaborated with local employers to explore apprenticeships, internships, and certification programs that strengthen the local talent pipeline. Educational experience, they identified potential partnerships for field trips, digital learning opportunities, and intergenerational mentorship programs. Community access, so they engaged with potential contractors to discuss pricing models, scholarship opportunities, in-kind contributions, and volunteer-led programs to ensure affordability. Site visits, so during the course of phase one, they conducted site visits to makerspaces and STEAM learning centers to identify best practices in staffing models, accessibility, membership structures, and technology integration. And then finally, the advisory committee formation. They established four advisory groups to focus on pre-K through 12 education, workforce development, community learning, and operational strategies, ensuring the long-term sustainability and continuous innovation of the center. Through collaboration with partners and stakeholders, Transformation Waco has identified 4 programming pillars that will guide the center's work and serve learners of all ages, from pre-K to gray, or from pre-K to bald for some of those that skip the gray stage, right? So pillar 1, pre-K through 12 academic achievement. So this pillar seeks to expand STEAM learning for pre-K through high school students through hands-on, inquiry-based experiences that align with educational standards and support classroom learning. Pillar 2, workforce development and career readiness, offering certifications, skills training, and workforce development programs to equip students and adults with the tools needed for success in high-demand career fields in McLennan County. Pillar 3, lifelong learning, creating continuous learning opportunities for adults and older individuals, improving digital access and technological literacy. And then finally, pillar 4, community and cultural connections, developing programs that integrate STEAM education with local culture, providing opportunities for families, community groups, and interdisciplinary collaborations. So in terms of the partnership discussions that were had during this phase, we've broken them down into several categories, and I'll just give you examples of a few of those. So first category, education and K through 12 enrichment. They had partnership discussions with Region 12, Waco ISD, Rappaport, La Vega, and those conversations focused on school collaboration and outreach. Additional conversations were had with Cameron Park Zoo, Girl Scouts, Discovery Education, just to name a few, and these conversations focused on hands-on STEAM learning. Another category, workforce and career readiness, conversations were had with Mars Wrigley, Cisco, the City of Waco, the Centex Chambers, and these conversations focused on industry and career pathways. Other conversations were had with Baylor University, Triple Win, and these were focused on higher education and technical skills. In terms of lifelong learning, they did touch base with Senior Planet and HotCog, and that was around the area of older adult education. For community and culture, they had discussions with Creative Waco, the libraries, of course, which are amazing, I hear, Parks and Rec, Keep Waco Beautiful, and these conversations focused on arts and culture and STEAM. Other conversations were with Grassroots Waco, the Mayborn Museum, La Nube, and these are just a few of the many discussions that were had as part of this first phase of the strategy. As part of the research process, the team visited a variety of STEAM learning centers to gather insights and best practices, and these are just a few examples of those. The Thinkery Del Valle, on the left there is a partnership between the Thinkery in Austin and Del Valle ISD, and that features locally inspired exhibits, which really focused on some of the exhibits, I should say. They focused on some of the local wildlife, some of the local aspects of Austin. It included accessible admission models and community-centered programs like after-school field trips. The second one, Cedar Park Library Makerspace. This one is a pretty new building. It's a hands-on innovation hub with 3D printers, laser cutters, all the works. A key takeaway from this visit was their approach to separate high-tech and messy spaces. So on one side, they had a high-tech space with all of the technology. On the other side, they had a messy space, which focused on more of the makerspace hands-on learning for participants. The next one, the Richardson ISD Immersion Lab. This features a 360-degree shared virtual reality experience, which will be included in the STEAM Center that is being planned. And it provides students with virtual field trips to landmarks worldwide. This visit really offered some of those best practices on cost-effective implementation of immersive learning technology. And then on the right is the Fort Worth YMCA For All Studios. This one is a state-of-the-art creative space featuring professional-grade recording and editing tools, which will also be a part of the STEAM Center. Their tiered fee structure and class offerings provided a model for making high-tech resources accessible to the community. In terms of phase 2, next steps, what we're looking at, upon your approval, we would be focusing on programming, development, and contractor recruitment, and that would run from March through August of 2025. What we'll be focused on during this phase is we will be refining target audience programs. That will be happening between March and May. Contractor sponsor outreach from April through July. We will be pilot testing select programs, which will be starting in May and run through August. Curriculum plan development, that'll start as soon as we get approval to move forward and run through June. We will have a program framework refinement after that from May through July. Pilot program summary reports for everyone to read, and then also project management progress reports throughout this phase 2 of this initiative. For phase 3, facility setup and pre-launch, that would run from September through December of 2025, right before opening. And for this phase, we would focus on testing and configuring equipment through the entire phase, project management progress reports through the entire phase, conducting practice workshops out in the community and in the center, the grand opening plan and schedules, which would be drafted from between October and December, We would host sneak peek events from November through December, operational readiness report November through December, and then the key piece here is we would have a programming schedule for year one, fully developed between the month of November and December. Next, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Jonathan Cook, who will be talking about the proposed playground structure.
Roberta, before you hop past that, I wanted to go back to the images of the site visit, if you can.
Sure.
And I say that because I'm intentionally saying this out loud because the people in this room who need to hear me say it. There was, when we visited the Thinkery in Del Valle, there was a water pump structure that they had that actually pumped water. And it had solar panels on it and all kind of amazing engineering things. And I was just thinking, if there was an engineer in town who could help us with that, maybe, that would be awesome. Because it was an amazing thing. But, it, you know, just saying. No pressure, Jacob Bill. But those were the kinds of things that kind of take this to the next level. And I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, because all of the things that we went and saw, and I mean, we'll go back to talk about this some more at the end, but, you know, the yeoman's work that y'all did in the site visits and hither, there, and yon from all over the state. But, I mean, some of the most fascinating pieces that you can lay hands on and touch and, you know, accidentally maybe hit Deidre with a ball with that air pump thing.
Yes.
It wasn't me, but it happened. But yeah, that's the coolest. But I think that that'll give an opportunity. You mentioned partners, more than just the usual suspects, the opportunity to partner. Because we've got lots of awesome engineering firms in our city, and I think somebody ought to want their name on all of this. Good, carry on.
Thank you, council member.
Mayor and council, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide a little bit of a preview of what we have envisioned for the outdoor area. And as y'all know, Derek in our facilities department giving us a sneak peek on the inside, and here we are pulling back the curtain on the programmatic side of things. And what we feel is just a grand opportunity to create an outdoor environment that is a natural extension of the education that's going to be going on inside of the building and really all throughout the Bledsoe Miller Park area. Number one goal in looking at this project for us is we've started talking, are the words that come to mind of discovery, imagination, exploration. Really, Councilmember Barefield just said, it's the next level. And this is not a standard playground. This is something that we wanted to draw people in, but at the same time offer an educational opportunity. So what we've come up with is really an engaging design, and obviously with the dramatic feature of a spaceship theme and that space exploration theme. Looking at this building, I will say this is to scale. This is a towering structure that will be 32 feet tall with winding sensory panels surrounded around the play structure with slides. This area that you see on the right is designed for an older child area, but all can play. There's different elements. But then we also have an area to the left where you see a rope structure, a lunar climbing toy, and other panels. That's designed for younger kids as well. So what we wanted to do is something that would be accessible for all ages. And then we also wanted, like we've done with our design of the future playground at Floyd Casey, the inclusivity factor. Making sure that the playground equipment, as you look around, of whether it's a seesaw or a swing set, has inclusive elements that all can play. And if you think to the playground structure that we currently have at the Bledsoe Miller facility, we have a mulch surfacing. And while that mulch surfacing and the sidewalks classify, just baseline accessibility, what we're proposing here with this playground is a pour-in-place structure. And we've we've just been able to really come in with sort of a solar system style design with educational. You'll see in the future drawing some hopscotch typing, different prints and different activities that are also on the surfacing. And then from there as well, if you don't mind slipping to the next slide, one of the more important things, we'll give a little bit of an overview here of some of the features, but the incorporation of shade. Perhaps no other playground across Waco, we all want good shade and protection, but that Bledsoe Miller playground, over 20 years, you've seen a significant amount of fading from the sunlight coming in and right on the river, so it's no doubt a hot spot. So we wanted to come in and provide ample shade with this playground structure. So this aerial view provides looking down to where you can see that shade coverage, and then with the rocket on the front side of it. I'll take note, we've got the accessible seesaw piece down in the front, different spinner toys as well. We can go to the next slide and we'll see even more of the swing set, some interactive touch features on the left-hand side. And as I've mentioned before, on the bottom you see that rope structure that younger kids are able to crawl, climb to the top, and really that sense of feel and exploration. So no doubt excited about this project. And the final thing is we realized what I wanted to, or really in the planning process, you know, the outside of this STEAM Center is going to be looking fresh in a paint job. So we really wanted something when you drive across the bridge that you're going to be able to see and draw in. And so we've also incorporated a lighting system for the playground at night. That will uplight this spaceship, so as you're crossing the river or coming down MLK, it'll be illuminated on the side of that white building to really create a dramatic piece. But most of all, when you look at playgrounds, and I gave a sneak peek to my kids at home, of all our playgrounds, and this is the wow factor. We really, they were the first question, when's it going to be done? So with that question, I was really excited to tell them, hey, this is going to be done this year is the project for the STEAM Center. We're on the timeline that Roberto just explained. And so tonight on the agenda, we do have an approval for working with Compound Playground Company to get this playground installed and ready for the grand opening.
Jonathan, this design looks really cool, and I'm excited about the spaceship design and the shade there, and just a whole new design for the playground out there. It seems consistent with the STEAM Center's focus. Just as a little bit of background in premises liability, making sure that it will be near impossible for children to scale the spaceship to the top, correct?
Correct, and you see the enclosures, so those are all going to be, they'll have a plexiglass where you can't climb through and climb up. That's something we will make sure. I know you have boys yourself, so often that sense of exploration gets the best of them.
Right.
So we will make sure it is a towering structure, making sure that those safety features are in place.
We'll have someone on staff to regularly grease the outside.
Make sure Joss isn't on top.
Thank you.
This slide, the only bad thing is the slide from there looks like something I want to go down. And I don't know that it's rated for me, unfortunately. This looks fantastic.
I don't know, it might be bigger.
We'll go down there and check it out.
It's like it's a test drive, so I do believe we're going to be good. So we might have to try that out at the grand opening.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I'm glad you put in the inclusive activity is for, that way we will have two, one on each side of town. And I'm happy about that. So glad that you included those projects in this playground area, because as I'm told, that is really needed in this city. So thank you for thinking about our kids.
Thank you, Jonathan. So with Phase 1 successfully completed in March, Transformation Waco is ready to move forward with Phases 2 and 3 upon your approval. And so in summary, the Bledsoe Miller STEAM Center will be a transformative hub for education, workforce development, and community engagement. Transformation Waco completed Phase 1 partnership strategy on time. We are ready to advance to curriculum development, contractor recruitment, and program piloting. And upon approval from council, we will commence phase 2 of this project and ensure installation of the playground structure. And with that, thank you, and I will open it up to questions.
Any questions? Council members?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm just ever grateful for the progress that we've accomplished with this program. Y'all know it's incredibly important to me, and I feel like we've got the right folks at the table. Always, we appreciate Transformation Waco for jumping in with both feet and having the nerve to be as excited about it as me. And of course, our city management and the council team for walking this journey with us, and Deputy City Manager Emerson for her guidance and leadership in this work. We intended to do our best to eliminate, barriers, out of school barriers for any educational opportunities and access. And I think this is exactly what this does. And, children can only be what they see. And when I get to see all of the things that exist right here in this city, the industry partners, the educational partners, the just unique opportunities to be able to go and see and do and touch and make, it's transformational, literally. And I think that it's going to change the face of how our current and future generation lead and advance and better Waco. Because yes, go be great in the world and here. So if we have it here, then they don't have to leave to get it. And I think that's one of the most important things to me. I'm appreciative of our educational partners always. Region 12 has stood up and worked with us when we did STEAM Clips during the eclipse, and the Waco, Dr. Spicer has jumped right in and we got involved, and Dr. Shields at La Vega and all of our teams. I'm curious if in phase 2 is when we'll dig deep with Baylor and MCC and TSTC, I assume, because that Baylor made a commitment with us a few years ago, right? To partner with us on $500,000, is that right?
Caught me with the chip in my mouth.
Oh, sorry, Chips.
My apologies to you.
Sorry, Chips.
My apologies to you. Yeah, as part of our deal with the pavilion investment we made, and we made in their project, where they came forward with a lead gift for the STEAM Center, and I think that's payable upon CO. Do you remember the amount, Deidre? I don't.
It's 500,000.
That's what I thought. I thought it was half.
It's a great contribution.
So our partners are committed. And, every day I'm gonna go to look for more. We talk about all the things that are happening in finance and government and budgeting and cuts and whatever. Please know that the people who I named earlier are turning over every rock for every dollar, so that the city of Waco doesn't have to lose, or we're not using a lot, strong parts of revenue to stand this thing up. We found money, and we keep looking for money, and I have no problem asking for it, as you can tell. But I'm super excited about this, and even Jonathan with the intentionality of including inclusive pieces in this playscape. That is what has been happening across various, as we update and upgrade our parks. We're trying to add more pieces because we realize that all of our residents, need to be included in that. And so they've been doing a really good job, not just at Casey, not just at Bledsoe, but in all of our parks. They're working to add inclusivity in that. So I'm proud of that for our Parks and Rec staff. And yay, let's keep going.
Well stated, Councilmember Bearfield. Any other questions or comments? I'll just say, again, everything that Andra just said is verbatim from me, ditto. Roberto, great job, good presentation. I like the three-phase approach, and the one that you've already completed, your team's done a phenomenal job. When you talk about really engagement, that partner discussion, where you're talking about 40 different potential partners, that's very ambitious, and I'm glad you got around to everybody. I like the categorization there. I also liked, because as I started reading this, I was thinking, let's look at other places, what they've done. Don't try to reinvent the wheel in certain ways, and you've done that too. You've done the site visits, and you've been Again, great on going to Del Valle and Cedar Park and Richardson and Fort Worth and seeing what works there and what we can improve on and what we can do better, what we want to copy and all that thing, super important. I like step 2, and this to me is going to be a super important part is the curriculum and the activation. It's so important to establish our day-to-day, what's going on there. We got to build early momentum and make sure that STEAM Center works in Waco. And so I'm excited that this part really gets traction. I'm excited to see what we come up with on that. And then pre-launch by the end of the year. I mean, this is great. You're right on schedule, right where we wanted to be with the opening by June or first quarter of 2026. That's fantastic. Jonathan, always a great presentation. Love listening to you talk about Parks and Rec. Great job there. I didn't know it was going to draw that much interest from our council members, though. I was looking at the shade. I thought the shade was very creative. And this guy wants to climb to the top, and this guy wants to slide down the thing. We're gonna be there definitely at the opening of this thing. And then I don't want this to end without recognizing our former mayor, Robin McDurham, former Waco mayor. And I want to let's hear it for our former mayor. I appreciate what you've done for the city of Waco, and then also for Transformation Waco and your role in helping us get this STEAM Center activated, and I look forward to working with you. So with that, thank you guys. Appreciate the presentation. And the next item is item work session 165, the discussion of Waco Regional Airport. City Manager Ford.
That's right. Work session 165 is inviting Michael Reisman down. He's our interim director of aviation. Michael joined the team in mid-October of 2024 as a contract employee. And in his time serving there at the airport, he's conducted a pretty extensive and comprehensive analysis of the airport and our operations there. And today he's going to give an overview of his findings, as well as highlight some key considerations for what's going on currently, as well as a look into the future. And as you'll note, as he gets through his slide deck, we have some pretty weighty topics to consider at the airport. And the long-term success at Waco Regional Airport is really going to take all of us. It's going to take the council, the city manager's office, the airport team, our tenants, and our customers to be successful. So while I don't need direction or an answer on all the things that Michael's going to bring up to you today, I do want to start getting your feedback on how we manage commercial leases at the airport, how we manage parking, and also ensure the council feels good about the goal of the airport being financially self-sustaining while also being an economic engine, or continuing to be an economic engine in our community. So I look forward to Michael's presentation and getting your feedback on his deep dive at the airport. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Again, I'm Mike Reisman. I am your interim director of aviation. A little bit of background, just jump right in here. The city retained the services of ADK Executive Search in order to provide assistance with the recruitment services for the new permanent director for the airport, and as well as providing an interim director during this transitional period, which of course is how you ended up with me. Again, as Mr. Ford said, I started back in October of '24, and in addition to managing the continuing operation, the daily activities of the airport, I was also tasked with conducting an assessment of the airport for the purposes mentioned. Those findings were to be used, obviously, by city management, in part to help identify some of the strengths that may be needed as they move forward with choosing a new director for the airport. A little bit of background and a little about the analysis itself. Along with the assistance of Department of Aviation staff, we researched and observed 21 specific elements of the airport's activities, operations, and overall activities. We compared those with other airports that were comparable to us as appropriate and or as requested by city management. For the purposes of this presentation, where I'm only really presenting a handful of what I consider to be the standout elements of this presentation, there are a number of other little things that are able to be handled otherwise, but they have no standout or significant issues to report. A little bit of background about the airport, and some of this may not be news to you. The Waco Regional Airport is classified officially as a non-hub primary commercial service airport that is included in the Federal Aviation Administration's National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, or NIPIAS. The reason why it's important to understand this is because the inclusion, these classifications, and the inclusion in the NIPIAS is what creates the airport's eligibility to participate in federal grant programs through the Airport Improvement Program and other various grant programs designed specifically to support airports. The airport presently has 74 based aircraft and about 100,000 annual aircraft operations. An aircraft operation is defined simply as a landing or a takeoff by an aircraft. At any given time, there are approximately 450 total employees on the airport who make their living full-time at the airport at one of the commercial aviation businesses or with the Department of Aviation. I'm not going to go through all of these. These are some of the major commercial businesses that are located at the airport. I do want to highlight three, however. Black Hawk Aerospace, which is a turbine engine performance center, Centex Aerospace, which is a manufacturer of performance modification conversions for King Air corporate aircraft, and Ram Aircraft, which is an engine and airframe overhaul facility that is the largest of only 3 companies in the world that overhauls or remanufactures big bore continental aircraft engines. So what they do is relatively unique. These 3 companies alone have, within the aviation industry, both national and global reach. They're known nationally, some of them are known globally. They do business around the world from the Waco Regional Airport. The airport's primary runway is 7,100 feet. Its secondary runway is 5,100 feet. For an airport of this size and nature, all the major aviation services that you would expect to be available at the airport are in fact available at the airport. Additionally, all of the expected customary instrument approach procedures are available as well, and it's those instrument approach procedures that allow landings during low visibility conditions. Might be worthwhile to point out that for the expense that goes into owning and maintaining the navigational aids and the instrument approach procedures, those are all owned, operated, and maintained by the Federal Aviation Administration, and the city has no direct costs involved with those. The airport, of course, is served by an air traffic control tower as well as a terminal radar approach control facility. The city, of course, owns those facilities, and they are operated by the Federal Aviation Administration and their air traffic controllers. And then lastly on this sheet, as a commercial service airport, the city is required from a regulatory standpoint to provide aircraft rescue and firefighting services, and those are in fact provided by the Waco Fire Department through the presence of Fire Station Number 10 on the airport property. American Airlines is the sole airline serving the airport presently with 6 daily flights, 3 inbound, 3 outbound. In calendar year 24, a total of 56,537 total enplanements were recorded, and enplanement is simply one person getting on an airplane. It is safe to assume, enplanements, of course, is what the FAA counts and considers as it relates to eligibility for various grants. However, it is safe to assume that for every person getting on an airplane, there is approximately 1 person also getting off an airplane. So the total number of passengers that were actually served at the airport in 2024 was actually about 109,000. The graphic that you're seeing in front of you right now is just simply the differential between charter enplanements versus commercial enplanements. The light blue are the airline passengers that got on American Airlines during calendar year 24. The darker blue are charter enplanements, which also count towards our grant eligibility. Those charter enplanements are primarily collegiate sports charters. It's airline type aircraft that are being chartered in or out of the airport to either transport Baylor University athletes out of the community for away games, or it's other colleges and universities around the country transporting their athletes into Waco for home games at Baylor. The terminal building is 36,500 square feet, includes, of course, 2 airline passenger gates with boarding bridges. Avis and Enterprise Rental Car are present in the building, and then the building also has has restaurant space, as well as serves the FAA, TSA, and the Department of Aviation offices for the city. The interior, of course, was renewed in 2023. The 1970s era exterior remains, as well as some wayfinding signage that is starting to get a little bit old looking, that requires some attention at some point in time as well. We'll talk a little bit about the economic impact of the airport. The Texas Department of Transportation, Division of Aviation, every few years conducts an airport economic impact study for the state of Texas. They do an independent economic impact study of every public use airport in the state, and then combine that for the overall state impact. What we, of course, get out of it is we get an individual economic impact study performed for the Waco Regional Airport that we did not have to hire a consultant to perform. The most recent study was done in 2018. It was supposed to have been updated during the COVID years, but because of the impacts of COVID, that project was put off, and presently it has not been updated by the state yet. But using the 2018 data, the direct impacts of the Waco Regional Airport represented over 600 jobs and $61 million of output. Along with the multiplier impacts, the total impacts was about 1,200 jobs and $114 million of total output. Honestly, this number seemed a little bit low to me for the size and the nature of the airport and the time that's gone by. That number to me seemed like it should have been somewhat higher. What we were able to do is the Texas A&M University provides and has available an airport economic impact calculator that we're able to go into and update this information. The raw data that it uses is the same raw data that produced this 2018 report. There were some things we were able to go in and update. There were some values that were locked to us that we were not able to update. So what we did do is we went in and we updated the things that we could update using actual 2024 numbers. And the output, there's a little bit different reporting than what we had in the 2018 study. But the idea was that that economic impact calculator identified over 32,000 general aviation visitors entering this community through the airport. Those are not the same as airline passengers. The airline passengers are coming in on American Airlines. This is 32,000 people coming to visit our community in private aircraft, corporate aircraft, military aircraft, flying in, parking, and coming into our community. The total number of jobs identified was almost 1,700, with almost $76.6 million of total labor and payroll, and total impacts of a little over $215 million. I believe that numbers are still a little bit low. As I was able to review the raw data from the 2018 study, there were very apparent holes in that data where some information was not simply reported for the 2018 study. And I suspect that if we were able to update that, if those cells were not locked to us by Texas A&M, that number would probably be somewhat higher than that. But that will probably have to wait until the TxDOT updates that report again. In terms of airport infrastructure, the airfield consists of just under 6 million square feet of paved airfield surfaces, 57% of which is in fair to good condition, 39% of which is in poor condition, and 4% of which is in serious condition. Of the 4% in serious condition, we already have construction projects either already underway or planned on the books to address those over the next few years, but some of that is actually physically under construction right now. The strength of the airfield pavement is stressed for typical narrow-bodied commercial aircraft, such as a Boeing 737 or Airbus A320. However, the pavements are capable of supporting larger, heavier, wide-bodied aircraft, provided certain weight restrictions are applied to them. The airfield lighting systems are made up of both older incandescent runway light systems as well as newer LED technology, but they've all been well maintained by city staff and in generally good condition and holding up well. Most of the hangars and other structures on the airport are in fair to good condition. There are, however, 2 older deteriorated hangars on the airport that do require attention and will need to be addressed at some point somehow. Additionally, as a reminder, as I had previously reported to the council in a different work session, the air traffic control facilities, while owned by the city, we anticipate, as previously noted, is that we believe that they are the oldest operating FAA ATC facilities in the United States right now, pushing close to 80 years old. While we've been maintaining the building as best we can, it's still almost an 80-year-old facility, and it's not really capable of being fully upgraded to meet current FAA standards for air traffic facilities. As a result of that, the replacement of that facility, of course, is now on the books, at least as a potential capital project for the future for the city to address. Carl May Drive is the main entrance road in and out of the airport, is in relatively good condition. The other roads and driveways on the airport are all in mostly fair condition, a few in poor condition. And then we have 2 public passenger parking lots with a little over 500 parking spaces that is seasonally inadequate. There are times during the year that that parking lot is overflowing and there's cars parked in the grass or in other landscaped areas. Also generally in poor to fair condition, as are the employee parking facilities or the employee parking lot that serves the terminal building, which also has a greatly inadequate capacity to handle the number of employees who actually work in the building, and those employees presently mostly park out in the public lot where the passengers are parking. Most of these pavements are not bad. They're really in need of some TLC. Crack sealing, seal coating will go a long way towards extending their useful life. Nothing's in serious condition though. The airport property is comprised of a total of 1,517 total acres, most of which is encompassed by the airfield, the runways, the taxiways, and the apron areas. The developable port, the area of the airport that's capable of still being developed for commercial or industrial development includes both aeronautical and non-aeronautical property. There's 393 acres of aeronautical property available that can be developed on the airport. Aeronautical property, simply put, is land that we can get airplanes back and forth to from the airfield. So this is land that, for the most part, we reserve or are required to reserve for aeronautical purposes, airplane hangars, or other commercial or industrial uses that are directly aviation related so that we can get airplanes to them. There is also, however, 141.5 acres of non-aeronautical property. And I'm sorry, the aeronautical property is what you see in orange on the screen. The pink areas and the yellow area are the non-aeronautical property. This is land that's part of the airport, but is detached from the airfield. And there is no way practically to get airplanes to and from that property. There is no requirement for the city to utilize that land strictly for aviation use. So any type of non-aviation, commercial or industrial uses are acceptable on that acreage. Within that 141 acres is the yellow area, which is 73 acres of a foreign trade zone. And pretty much all of the developed area of the airport is pretty well served by utility infrastructure, and then water, sewer, and all other typical utility infrastructure, main lines at least, exist around the entire perimeter of the airport. So as the airport may continue to develop or new projects are built on the airport, it's really service line extensions that are going to be required as opposed to a major investment in bringing main service anywhere. Talk a little bit about the airport's budget. The airport has historically been operating with a subsidy from the general fund. That subsidy in 2020, in fiscal year 24, was a little over $900,000. And in 2025, the current fiscal year is budgeted at a little over $1 million. With the graph that you're looking at here, the blue lines are primarily the actual subsidy, the general fund subsidy that supported the airport operating fund during those years. While you don't see those blue lines, basically 21, 22, 23, those numbers were offset by CARES Act funds that were received. However, at the same time, as we talked about this with city management, it became clear that what we really needed to do is to give the city and give this council a clear picture of what it's really costing the city to operate the airport. It was necessary to plug into this what the fire department's expenses are to operate Fire Station Number 10. Because Fire Station Number 10 is a dedicated station for the airport. They don't provide mutual aid. They're at the airport 24/7, 365. So what you see in the red for each of these last 10 years is what the finance department reported for the fire department expenses strictly for Fire Station Number 10. The reason why it's a little bit transparent for those same years is because we were able to use CARES Act funds to offset the fire department's operating expenses during those years as well. But with CARES Act fund gone now, that came back in 2024. I'll talk more about this in a couple of minutes on another slide as well. So as a result of all this and presenting all this to city management, we were provided with direction to help identify the reasons why we're operating with such a subsidy for an airport of this nature, as well as try to identify what opportunities existed to mitigate, that general fund subsidy. So as a group in the Department of Aviation, we sat back and we started asking the questions. Why has a subsidy been needed to support the airport's operating fund? We conducted an analysis of a lot of things, and we came up with a lot of little reasons that add up to a lot of little things. But an analysis of a deep dive into the leases and the rates and charges of the airport really helped bring to the surface three primary reasons that are resulting in this subsidy. Reason number one are the airport's leasing practices. Historically, the leasing practices at the airport have simply not assured the long-term financial viability and the self-sustainability of the airport. Why? Well, because the city has not required tenants that are commercial tenants that are located at the airport to lease all of the exclusive use space that they are actually using for their commercial purposes. To give you an idea of what that actually looks like, in this diagram here, each different color represents a different commercial tenant on the airport. The solid colors represent the areas that are actually under lease that the city is collecting rent on. The associated colors that are kind of transparent is all the additional space that those tenants are using exclusively for the conduct of their commercial aviation businesses, but for which they are not paying rent on and the city is not collecting any rent on. You can see from this that there's a lot more area that we're not collecting rent on than area that we are collecting rent on. And that's a big part of this picture. The airport, the good news is that the airport is capable of self-sustainability. However, in order to accomplish that, it's going to require changes to the lease practices and the lease policies. To give you a little idea, as we looked at going back to that diagram I just showed you, when you look at just those solid colors that we are collecting rent on, those rental collections are just under $250,000 a year. If we were collecting rent on all of the areas that were identified, we'd be collecting over $650,000 in rent. So there's a fairly large differential there in terms of property being used for commercial activities that the city is not being paid for. Reason number two, rates and charges. The airport's rates and charges are generally below fair market value or fair market rate. Most of the leases have limited CPI adjustment clauses in them that are partially to blame. Some of those CPI clauses only allow the city to adjust rental rates once every 4 or 5, in some cases every 10 or 12 years. There's simply no way for the city to continue to keep its pace up with fair market value if it's not able to make rental rate adjustments based on consumer price index adjustments on at least an annual basis. There may be a fair market value in year number 1 of a brand new lease, but starting in year number 2, the city is already falling behind and will never be able to catch up given the current provisions and those terms of those contracts. Additionally, there are not-for-profit tenants on the airport who are paying negligible rent for large acreage leaseholds. I can tell you that the Civil Air Patrol is the only nonprofit entity that the Federal Aviation Administration allows a public airport to not collect rent or fair market value rent from. And we're collecting very negligible rent from these other nonprofit tenants. Additionally, there was a recent rates analysis as a result of the current hangar project that's getting ready to get underway. Staff went out and did a rates analysis that we conducted ourselves to ensure that at least the amount that we were plugging in and requiring of the new tenant was at least consistent with what current fair market value or fair market rate is today based upon the current rates information that's out there. Overall, fair market value assessments have been limited on the airport over the years, and they've been inconsistent. And it is recommended that ultimately the city probably should bring an outside consultant in to do a rates and charges analysis, as well as a fair market value assessment to help identify the amount of revenue or what those rates and charges should be moving forward to ensure the city is being treated or treating itself fairly in the future.
Michael, will you maybe go down a rabbit trail that maybe you weren't intending to, but will you explain the concept of fair market value in the context of the FAA? Because it's, the council often will hear in a real estate transaction fair market value, but not within the context of the FAA, because that's a pretty important.
Yes.
So will you walk us down that and give us some perspective?
Absolutely. To start off with, it's important to understand that while the city is the owner-operator of the airport, unfortunately, the city doesn't have a lot of say in how the airport operates, given all of the federal regulatory rules that are out there. And the way I've always described it is if you taketh the FAA's money for grant projects, you taketh that money with their conditions, and their conditions are very long and very arduous to understand sometimes. One of those requirements is that the FAA has an official rates and charges policy for public airports. I can tell you that the rates and charges policy, and that rates and charges policy is fairly clear in terms of how how airports should be collecting rates. There's a couple of different ways it can be done, but generally speaking, the intent is to collect, and the requirement is for the airport to be collecting either fair market value for the services and the property and the hangars that it owns, that it's leasing, or fair market rate, depending upon which method you're using. Overall, the goal or the intent of most airports is to generate as much revenue as possible from other than the airlines. The idea being is that that helps offset the airlines' costs, brings down the cost for the airlines, and then helps attract or becomes an attractant for additional airline service. In this particular case, again, while there's been a few limited fair market value assessments over the years, those fair market value assessments were done, but then they don't appear to have ever been applied to the leases themselves. Why, I cannot explain to you, but that appears to be the case. But generally speaking, there are FAA rules about how airports should be operating. There are common practices that public airports use. We're not fully utilizing that toolkit here in Waco. Does that fully explain, Mr. Ford? This graphic here, again, provides a 10-year operating revenue versus operating expense snapshot for you. This does not fade out the areas where we had CARES Act funds, but very clearly what we're trying to show here for the last 10 years is that the blue graphs, the blue bars are the airport operating revenues, the green bars are the airport operating expenses. The differential you see there is fairly consistent with the other graph that we saw on airport operating subsidy. Again, for the red, we went ahead and we added in the operating expenses for fire station number 10. What the story that this picture tells, that this snapshot tells, is that the true cost to the city to operate the airport, in some cases, in some years, is twice or slightly more than twice what the airport is actually bringing in revenue. And one of the difficult things, as Mr. Ford kind of mentioned earlier, is how does the city plan to, or will the city potentially make some decisions moving forward to try to correct this differential so that there is a more even bar, or possibly even the airport's capable of generating some surplus revenue. Reason number 3, free parking. Hopefully the people at home aren't booing me right now. But I know that this subject comes up every few years. I've even found a few YouTube videos on it as I was researching the Waco Regional Airport. Simply put, at most commercial service U.S. airports, parking is the single largest source of revenue for those airports. That is true of small airports, such as the Waco Regional Airport, if we were collecting parking revenue, to medium-sized airports, to large hub airports like Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, you name it. You will be very hard-pressed to find any commercial service airport of any size that does not show their parking revenue as their #1 source of income. The parking at the Waco Regional Airport has obviously been provided for free. There are, again, 500 public parking spaces at the airport. There are an average of 250 vehicles parked at the airport at any given time. That's a conservative number because we exceed that number many times throughout the year, and we overflow those 500 spaces at different times throughout the year. So as we think about that, if the city of Waco was to decide to start charging for parking at the airport, it could potentially start with a low, reasonable daily rate, something that's not enough to change the flying habits of the local population who fly from the airport, but something that's meaningful to the airports and the city's revenue at the airport and could potentially help turn this general fund subsidy around. With that in mind, we ran some numbers. And again, the conservative number was just based on the 250 cars that are out there on average. At a low daily rate of $5 a day, the airport would generate over $450,000 a year of estimated gross revenue. That number, in my opinion, would certainly be higher because, again, we're using a low conservative average, and we know that the parking lots are busier than that on a regular basis. For every additional dollar per day above $5, additional annual revenue could be increased by over $91,000. As an alternative, the city could consider putting a cap on that and say park for $7, pay for $5, and cap it at $25 a week, in which case the city would generate over $326,000 a year. And for each additional dollar above $5 could generate another $65,000 and change. For comparative purposes, as we looked at other small commercial service airports that we compared ourselves to that charge for parking, the closest was Tyler Airport in Tyler, Texas, charging $7 a day for parking, and all the other airports were at $10 a day or higher. What's interesting about this thought is that unlike in the past, where in order to charge for parking, an airport had to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in fencing and gates and parking and revenue control systems, with mobile app technology and mobile app parking apps that are out there now, there is not just the probability, there is the certainty that the city could, if it decided to start charging for parking, could implement paid parking at a very negligible cost, other than some signs and ensuring that we've got Wi-Fi signals out in the parking lots. This is something that could be implemented on very short notice at a very negligible expense with a very high return in a very short period of time. Based on the findings from the analysis overall, it was evident to myself, at least, and us, that the airport is capable of both self-sustainability as well as being an economic generator for the community. In order to accomplish that, however, it's going to require some fundamental changes in lease practices, some reconsideration of the rates and charges policy, and potentially a reconsideration of free parking at the airport. Moving forward, depending upon what path the city may decide to go down, there are some difficult decisions to be made, as Mr. Ford alluded to previously. If those difficult decisions are made, it will require a steadfast commitment, probably from the council and from city management, to stand by those decisions, because when that happens, you will likely receive some pushback. You'll get pushback on paid parking, you'll get pushback from tenants on rates and charges and lease policies. So it's something to be prepared for. And it's also going to take time to see results. This did not happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. The good news is that it can be fixed, though. To conclude, very broadly speaking, your airport and its infrastructure are in pretty good condition. The equipment and the personnel that you have staged at the airport is very satisfactory under the circumstances. The airport has both a national and global reputation based on given the certain businesses that are based at the airport and their global reach. And while operating at a subsidy, the airport is very capable of overcoming that, provided that both short-term and long-term strategies to achieve that are implemented. Decisions regarding that path forward obviously need to be discussed and to be had. And with that, thank you and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Reisman?
Yes, Michael, thank you very much. I have a couple questions. Remind me, what are the other not-for-profit businesses operating out there?
There are a number of commercial aviation businesses. There's, let me roll back to the beginning, towards the beginning. This is the list of all the commercial businesses that are operating at the airport, and very broadly, basically what they do. I'm happy to read those off if you'd like me to.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you said there were a lot of not-for-profit businesses.
Oh, my apologies. I misheard you. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool.
The Waco Gun Club occupies a little over 90 acres of airport property and pays less than $5,000 a year in rent on that. That equates out to a little over half a cent per square foot, which is extremely below fair market value. The Waco Gun Club is a little bit of an anomaly, though, because to charge them fair market value rent for 90 acres is probably not going to be practical. The other is Hot Cart, the go-kart track that's out there. Occupies about a little over 5 acres of land, and really only pays about $1,800 a year in rent for that acreage.
Those are both nonprofits?
They're listed as a not-for-profit.
Basically.
Okay.
Don't fully, yeah, that they're
Okay.
listed as a not-for-profit, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Those are the two, so you've got those two there. There are some other non-aviation, there's another non-aviation business, there's Mercury Tool, the MFPHD is out there. They're below fair market value, but they're not that far below fair market value. They occupy about 6 acres of land, but it's really the gun club and the go-kart track that occupy a lot of space.
Shifting gears to the for-profits, and your images of what we should be collecting rent for, the entire space that they're using, not just the buildings.
Right.
So it sounds like we should have been doing that. In your opinion, is that something they can absorb if we shift to that?
I don't know that I can say at this point in time what those businesses are or are not able to absorb. I suspect that as you start having conversation about this, you're going to find out. We're all going to find out what they're going to tell us that they're willing to absorb or not. I would imagine that for some of those businesses, they should be very capable of absorbing some of the smaller areas that we'd be asking them to start leasing. There is the one tenant on the airport that would be a fairly substantial add. And I would think that as we get into that conversation would probably lead more towards reducing their footprint, than trying to do anything less than fair market value or fair market rent. But it's hard for me to say what they could or couldn't afford at this point in time.
Go ahead.
And I know I'm not going to kind of delve into the policy discussion of, especially not without the full study of what would be appropriate rates and things like that. But I did want to, could you say again, just on as we consider these changes to kind of put this maybe more in the black from what we are now, which is heavily subsidized, can you mention for us, again, what some of the peer airports, I know there's a lot of, for example, Bryan College Station, Tyler, assume Midland, Killeen. Yeah, we used to fly out of Killeen back in the day. What are some other, I recall Killeen being free at one time and then it wasn't after that. What are some of the, I guess, comparable cities that in your mind, or comparable airports, what they charge for parking, just for us to consider that?
So the only, we looked at a number of other smaller commercial service airports, especially those that were only served by a single airline, such as American in the region, Texas. I believe San Angelo was the only airport that we identified that was not charging for parking at the present time. However, San Angelo also identified that they had some other out-of-the-ordinary revenue sources that allowed them to absorb that and not have to charge for parking. But we looked at Tyler, we looked at Midland, we looked at Killeen, we looked at a handful of other smaller, we looked at Laredo. Some airports were a little bit large. It's kind of hard to find an airport exactly like yours because every airport's different and a different size. But we came as close as we can, comparatively speaking. Most of those daily rates were in the $10 to $12 range. But the least expensive that we identified, I believe, was Tyler at $7 a day.
And I would just, again, I know we're taking this under advisement. This is a great study, and I appreciate what you've done for us because I think this helps us in thinking of the airport as a business operation and also as an economic driver and one that generates a lot of business in our community. But just kind of a note for the community is that this is yet another regional undertaking that the city of Waco solely shoulders for our region that benefits so many more people than just Wacoans. And, that is a key to a lot of our budgetary challenges that we see year in and year out. And so I would just note for the public that this is another solid that the city of Waco is doing for our region, and one that we're happy to do so, but one that we need to reevaluate revenue streams on. So greatly appreciate your work for us here today.
Thank you, Michael, for the report. And as we have evolved and gone through the wonderful opportunity of renovating our airport recently, we realize what a jewel it is that we have and cannot be maintained for free. My question is, we were talking about in the discussion of the lease terms, are these businesses, especially the commercial spaces that we currently have leases with, are we at a point where we're approaching where that lease could be renegotiated? I mean, or, because I understand they're long-term leases?
Yes, ma'am. The answer is no.
Okay.
Part of the overall snapshot of what's been happening is that it's not uncommon for a brand-new structure to be built on an airport and for the city or the airport to grant up to, say, a 40-year lease. That's not uncommon. What is uncommon, however, is that through the course of those 40 years, it really, the responsibility of maintaining and upgrading that building is part of the cost of doing business, and those tenants should be bearing the cost of those upgrades. What's been happening for a long time is that as tenants have been making upgrades and making additional investments in their facilities, the city has continued to grant additional time extensions onto those leases. So a tenant will come forward and say, hey, I'm going to put X number of dollars into my building to renovate it because it's due, but I'm not going to put that money in if I can't extend my lease out and get into the full 40 years. And the city has extended the lease. That is not typically how airports operate. Typically, a building gets constructed brand new. They lease a piece of raw land for whatever the lease term is. At the end of that lease term, title to the building vests to the city. And suddenly, if they want to stay in that building, then they have to pay a higher rental rate because it's now considered improved versus the unimproved land that they built. And that's part of the whole leasing practice thing that's kind of been going on for a while. It's also been somewhat inconsistent, so not every tenant has necessarily been given the same opportunity to do those things, but it's worked for the tenants. It's been very beneficial for the tenants. It unfortunately has not necessarily been beneficial for the city.
Well, we are blessed with an opportunity to exercise our minds for a little bit because, as we know, there's nothing that we have that doesn't require work to do it. And these will be uncomfortable conversations, I'm sure, but necessary ones because when nothing changes, nothing changes. And so I think that this is a great opportunity for us to really dig into with our partners and who understand the work and works of this community and have benefited from the work and works of this community and this council, well, previous councils in this one, and get to a solution. Because if we don't find a way to sustain ourselves, then it goes away.
It might be worth pointing out that it is certainly not my goal or my intent here to throw any predecessors at the airport under the bus here. The fact of the matter is that a lot of these decisions were made many years ago.
No. I mean, that would be like us blaming past councils. We can't do that.
Yeah,
we don't do that.
I don't know what the circumstances were 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago when some of these leases were done. And at the point in time that those were done, there may have been a reason why it made sense to do that.
You're the only one on council that keeps.
Yeah, I was.
I was like, you're the only one, so
We
it is,
just
all
had a coffee pot there.
Listen.
I mean, I was.
So, I mean, that's not a thing, but I mean, what we're dealing with right this minute is what we're dealing with. And so moving forward, we operate with the best intention for it to be, at least where everybody walks away with something. We're not overly burdened, and Josh, I thank you for bringing up that point of standing up, such a fine facility for our region. And visitors alike, as well as our residents. But we have to figure out how to maintain it because at the end of the day, the services that people have come to rely upon cost more. And we've got to figure out how to stretch all these dollars, just like we do at home. So.
And it was mentioned, I forget which council member mentioned it earlier, but There are a lot of municipally owned airports out there that for a long time have been operated in a manner other than being looked at as an individual business entity. But more and more, it's important to look at your airport and recognize that it is a business. And like any business, in order to survive, it has to be self-sustaining. The airport doesn't necessarily have to make a lot of money or put a lot of money in the bank, but it should at least support itself. And it should at least be neutral, cost neutral to the city.
Any other comments? Michael, thanks for the presentation. Great information, and very enlightening. Because, this slide to me just jumped out. Our revenue is staying right in that, million one range, and our
Yes.
expenses are now approaching 3 million a year. So we got to figure out how to address that. The three I like how you just kind of very clearly separated out 3 items we need to look at. And one of them that I have a specific question, and really as a follow-up to Councilmember Bearfield, on those long-term leases, the apron area, the lightly shaded area, in those long-term leases, and I don't expect you to answer this question right now because you may not know, because out of these 7 or 8 on this slide up there, are there explicit, is that are the leases for the buildings only, or could we go back and say, hey, you're using this apron space too, if you want to keep using it, now we've got to kind of modify your lease a little bit?
As it relates to how the rent is calculated based solely on the footprint of the building.
Well, no, in most cases or all cases?
Right. In all cases, for the commercial buildings, it is only the footprint of the building that the city is collecting rent on. There are 1 or 2 leases out there that include a little bit of apron space in front of the building for utilization by the tenant, but no rent is being collected on that. It's part of their leasehold, but there's no rent being paid on it.
Got it. So maybe some wiggle room availability there. And then your second point on just what are market rates for the building, we evidently are a little bit below, but that's understandable on long-term leases. But you are recommending, I'm trying to get clear on this, the FAA standards almost require a regular, sounds to me like a regular study of a rate study.
It doesn't necessarily, the FAA requirements don't necessarily require that you do a regular study. The FAA requirements are there to ensure that airports are required to charge fair market rates or fair market value. In the rates and charges policy, airports are required to be as self-sustaining as possible. That is actual wording and language out of the FAA policy on rates and charges. A public airport receiving federal grant money should be taking the actions necessary to be as self-sustaining as possible. But the FAA recognizes that's not possible for some airports. I believe it is possible for this airport. It just hasn't happened up until this point.
So if we were to move forward with kind of a study, we could get not only what the building rates are, but what apron rates are too, and parking rates for that matter, although it sounds like you already kind of good.
You can do this a couple of different ways. Realistically, airport staff can be tasked with going out and doing a compensatory rate study, identifying what the rates are at other airports around the region or the country, as the case may be. What typically happens then is the argument of how does the city staff then quantify the numbers that they're bringing forward and recommending. Not that the numbers from a consultant won't also be questioned, because they certainly can be.
Sure.
But my suggestion in using a consultant is based strictly on the fact that, as far as I can tell, this has never been done at the Waco Regional Airport. And for the significant changes that are potentially, that the city is generally faced with, and the decisions you're faced with, it might be a little bit easier and a little bit more solid information if you had an outside consulting firm that specializes in these things to go out and conduct that study for you. It makes it a little bit easier to justify that it wasn't airport staff or anybody else in the city staff
Independent.
suggesting a number that doesn't coincide with a true commercial comparison.
Agreed. And maybe that's if you're looking for direction, head nods, Bradley, I think I would suggest we get a study, independent study that for all 3 of those, just see where we are on building lease rates. Not that there's a whole lot we can do about it. We'll figure those out one by one.
It might also be worthwhile to point out that what you're getting right now is you're getting my professional opinion about these things. The city, of course, is in the process of getting ready to hire a new permanent director for the airport. And there are other ways of doing these things. There are other skill sets that come with different people. And there's certainly the possibility that whoever you bring in might have some different ideas as to how to try to right the ship, so to speak.
Great.
Bradley, the 450 employees that he said are there at the airport, are they City of Waco employees or American Airlines?
It's mainly the groups on this slide right here, but there are, I mean, I forget, Michael will know how many, between 10 and 15 airport employees, is that
Yeah,
our team?
Yeah, presently we've got 11, I believe, 11 authorized Department of Aviation positions that are city employees. There's about 60 employees at the airport that are government employees, either FAA or TSA employees. And then about 20 or so American airline employees. And the rest are all employees of these general aviation commercial businesses.
I just wanted to get that clear in my head. We have 450 employees.
No, we
Yeah.
run
I
pretty
mean, I wrote
lean.
that down, so.
Yeah, we run pretty lean at the
what he
airport. City staff-wise, we run lean. I know and we're putting more pressure, frankly, on the team out there, given our fiscal realities. We're squeezing a little more juice out of the turnip, so to speak. And I know that's hard. We've got airport employees here in the room and probably watching online too. I know that as we continue to try and deliver services without increased subsidies, we're asking a lot of our team members out there. We're asking them to double up on duties, and that's not lost on me, and I know it's not lost on the council, that creates impact on people's lives.
And especially when there are other ways that we could potentially do these things. So I'll echo Mayor's statement, Bradley. We're asking, what is it that you're asking of us? You just, because yes, I believe as Mayor mentioned, the consultant would be helpful, but is there anything else you need from us?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I feel like I'm getting, the vibe in the room is that we recognize we want to work on the subsidy overall, which requires us to move generally in the direction that Michael's identified. Relative to paid parking, would love your feedback at some point, because if we are going to mobilize in that direction, we need a pretty strong communication strategy around that, and a runway, so to speak, or a ramp, to start communicating with our customers. So particular to today's feedback, I think generally I know y'all want to move in the same direction towards a more self-sustaining model. But if you've got feedback on parking, either share it today or shoot me a note.
I think I'd like to see just all the different rates, apron rates, lease rates, and parking rates. I know incidentally, you've kind of told us, and I got a pretty good feel for it, but I would be more comfortable if I saw it on paper, and presentation.
On parking too? Okay. Yeah, oh, definitely. We can do that.
Go ahead.
This is know that we're having these conversations now, so it's not going to be a shock.
Anything else, Bradley?
No, I appreciate, Michael, your support on this and thoughtfulness around it.
Bradley, when do you want our thoughts on the paid parking?
Well, I guess let me put it on, to the mayor's request, I'll put it on paper and give you the kind of the peer airport study that shows that a $5 approach, where it compares to some others. And then I'll let that sit with y'all for a couple weeks and then start soliciting your feedback.
Okay.
So that ball can be in my court.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Michael, great presentation, good information. Appreciate your work out there. The last item, Bradley, are we going to try to tackle 166 this time, or how are we going to do it?
Yeah, I'd ask Clint to hop on up, and I think there were only 4. Do you want to prioritize any that you think the council might most likely need to hear about, perhaps? These are the public hearing items for the planning section of the agenda, and this is Clint Peters, Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Bradley, Mayor, Council. Yes, I wanted to highlight 2 out of the 4. for you. We do have 4 public hearings. All are recommended for approval by Plan Commission. The 2 that I wanted to highlight, the first being Public Hearing 173. This is some rezoning related to proposed Waco Gateway addition. This is the development that has started developing between Bagby and I-35 in the industrial district. There's a little segment of gateway that's been built. There's going to be a new gateway that connects I-35 to Bagby. A little segment of it's been built, and there's an apartment complex that's been built up at the corner of Bagby and Gateway. But the remainder of the property has sold to a new property owner, and they've come in and reworked the plans. They've realigned Gateway to actually connect into the underpass under 35. So it's a better layout that we think and the developer thinks will be more conducive to more of a mixed-use development than straight industrial. So what they're requesting is some changes to the zoning from industrial land use and industrial zoning to some commercial and mixed-use zoning that would accommodate some commercial zoning along I-35, where you would have some retail spaces at the new street intersection along the frontages, and then also creates a small retail commercial pad at the corner of Bagby and Gateway, and then also, and that's about 20 acres, and then rezoning Lot 4 on this property to O2, which is a mixed-use district designed for multifamily development. Which is actually a more compatible zoning district with the adjacent single-family neighborhood instead of industrial zoning. You do have Flat Creek that runs through there, and then with the multifamily development that is more compatible with that neighborhood than industrial. The Plan Commission did recommend approval of both of these, and we did not get any feedback or opposition from the public hearing or cards.
And Clint, on both sides of the Sendero Springs subdivision, which has got nearly 700 rooftops there, we've got kind of the Flat Creek kind of splits and is a natural boundary around there. So there's kind of a natural buffer, is that fair, between the residents and these developments?
There is. The Flat Creek runs through there and has a floodplain, so a lot of the development, even the development that's occurring on these lots will be away from the subdivision because of the floodplains for Flat Creek.
Thanks.
And then the second case I wanted to highlight is 174. This is a rezoning from Baylor University to rezone about 3.5 acres from single-family zoning to O2. This is what's known as Edgefield Park. It's the piece of land that Baylor owns across from the science building that's used for recreational areas. The band practices there. It is actually the only property on Baylor campus that is owned single family. Of the 1,100 acres for Baylor University proper, about 95% of it is zoned O2, with the other 5% being a mix of commercial zoning, multifamily zoning, and then this one single-family zoning that dates back to the 1960s when Baylor acquired it through urban renewal. So they've been looking at potentially doing some improvements to the site to enhance what's being used there now for the Baylor Band practice facility, the marching band practice field, and O2 would help with that. We did get, at the Plan Commission hearing, we did have 2 of the homeowners in the faculty housing, which is land that's owned by Baylor, but the homes are owned by faculty. There was 2 of those owners that spoke at the Plan Commission with concerns that if this property was developed to what would be allowed in O2, it could potentially cause some negative impacts to those homes. Baylor did respond that this is really just trying to get the zoning in line with the dominant zoning for the campus, and there's no intent to change use of the property. That is really just looking to align the zoning with the rest of the campus. And Plan Commission did recommend approval of that. And Mayor, that's all I'd like to cover.
Any questions for Director Peters? Great report, Clint.
So, Clint, if, the land is owned by Baylor, right? So
That's
no
correct.
one can come in there without their approval to build something within the O2
That's correct. Yeah,
limitations?
they have no intent of selling the property. It's going to be used for Baylor uses.
Okay.
I think they used to have rugby games on that lot, too. I went to a couple of those back in the day. Any other questions of Clint? All right, with that, that's it, Bradley, on the work session items, correct? We now have the last item, which is council request for scheduling and future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, we'll now recess the work session and reconvene regular session for executive session as read into the record by the interim assistant city secretary Parker at 5:08 PM. Did I have it right?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions. 1, attorney briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071, individual permit, major amendment application to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, regarding wastewater permit number QW00031900000. Number 2, real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072. And number 3, economic development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. The City Council is now in executive session.